as I was researching Calvin Coolidge, a lot of the things that he did, especially the circumstances when he took over, were very similar in a lot of ways to the circumstances when President Joe Biden took over. Now, they're not exactly the same. I understand things were not as good when Joe Biden took over. We weren't in the middle of a huge, roaring 20s type of thing. However, when Coolidge took over, the influenza pandemic had ended recently, a few years before. It ended in 1920, and he took over in 1923. World War II had ended a couple years before that, in 1918. And Warren G. Harding was pretty much universally accepted as not a great president. So while these things happened, a little bit before, it wasn't like right before he became president that they happened. He was kind of the first guy who inherited a hope for this kind of good economy, because Warren G. Harding didn't really do much with it, to be honest. Yeah. Coolidge, he understood that this economy was ready to burst, was ready to have some of its best times, and so he kind of stood back and he said, "I'm going to let the free market do its thing." And that's interesting because it's the opposite of what we saw Joe Biden do.
That's a great comparison. Imagine if, instead of cracking down even like more on COVID and regulations and lockdowns and all this stuff, if Biden had just, taken a letter out of Coolidge's notebook and just kind of stood back and let the economy recover, we'd probably be in an amazing spot right now. So,
but he's so unlike Coolidge.
Yeah.
Didn't Coolidge have almost nearly like a record number of words in his vocabulary? I think he was supposed to be one of the most literate presidents ever, I believe. And, Joe Biden seems to know roughly 250 words right now.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the extent of his vocabulary.
Soldier.
COVID, chump, corn pop.
Yeah.
Corn pop was a bad dude.
If you put those two words together,
leg hair, sniff hair, girl's hair.
Yeah.
Come
on.
Man.
That's
Come
definitely
on. Pony. So what was the pony soldier?
Dog-faced pony
Pony soldier.
Dog-faced pony soldier.
That's good. Are we done with Coolidge? We're still doing Coolidge?
We're still going. We're still on Coolidge.
Yeah.
So another similarity to Biden, while we're talking about Biden, is that kind of the idea of this time was that we needed a return to normalcy. We had this pandemic. We had this war that had just ended. And Harding kind of ran on that as well, and it didn't really work. People didn't like him. His administration was marred by scandals, and he's typically remembered as a pretty bad president who obviously passed away at the end of his term. But even before that, there was scandals. There were things that didn't look great for him. And so Coolidge didn't even really run on this return to normalcy sort of messaging, because obviously the first time he just was inaugurated after Harding died. So he didn't run a campaign. He kind of just lived it. Those were his actions. He was quiet. He was calculated. He held press conferences when he needed to. He was open with the press. He was known because he loved to have his picture taken, all these things. But he didn't say too much. He didn't go out there and just talk around in circles. He said what needed to be said, and then he kind of stepped back and, let the people rule themselves to a certain extent.